Hello there and welcome to number 28, day 28 in our Lexical Lab Summer School 2019 series of video diaries. Today was my penultimate day with my wonderful advanced proficiency level English Boost students. And one of the things I've been thinking about quite a lot whilst teaching such amazing high-level students is how even students who've been studying English for years and years and years and who have a really amazing range of vocabulary still struggle sometimes to express ideas in the simplest, most everyday, common kind of spoken English ways. One example from last week was someone was talking about a present that someone had given to them for a birthday. And they didn't know the expression, I got given it for my birthday, okay? And it's funny because these were students who have an incredibly sophisticated, rich range of vocabulary available to them. But just those little everyday things like, I got given it for my birthday, often don't get taught in course books. When I first encountered the whole idea of lexical teaching or a lexical approach to language, initially through reading Michael Lewis's book, The Lexical Approach, back in the mid-1990s, I guess I saw it primarily as a way of looking at and a way of thinking about language. And one of the things that it did for me as a teacher, as a human being really, was to shift my interest away from obsessing about unusual grammatical structures in course books. You know, the kinds of things I used to worry about were sentences like John left when Jane arrived, John was leaving when Jane arrived, John had left when Jane arrived, etc. And what I started to do much more was to notice and think about the kinds of blocks of language or fixed phrases that I heard all around me in my day-to-day conversations and that I found myself using. And I started to realise how little of that language is actually ever really taught in course books. In a sense, this is what led myself and Andrew, my writing partner, to become writers in the first place, was a desire to bring more of that kind of everyday speech into the EFL classroom. And I was reminded of all of this again today because of a little almost throwaway conversation that I had with one of my students. We were chatting just as the break was ending, and I asked this student, Julia, I said, so what are you going to do this afternoon? You've got your free afternoon. And she said, well, I'm thinking of going to Brighton with Masha from the other class, but I'm not sure we'll have enough time. So I said, well, it'll take you at least an hour to get there once you get to Victoria. So, you know, if we finish class at 1:30, you'll be there for 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock. She said, well, at least that means we'll get a few hours there, and that's better than nothing. To which I replied, well, there is that. And she looked slightly bemused and said, what was that expression you just said? So I repeated, there is that. And we wrote the conversation down on the board. And I realised that in all the years of teaching expressions for agreeing or showing that you understand a point that someone's made, I'd never, ever, ever taught this simple but incredibly frequent little chunk of language, and that we often use it when someone is pointing out an advantage or a fact about something that maybe we hadn't considered before. You know, so maybe somebody says, well, it's raining outside. I'm not sure we'll be able to do the picnic this afternoon. Yeah, that's true. But hey, we could always go to that cafe. There's that nice little place up near where we were going to go anyway. Ah, there is that. Yeah, we could do that. And that's very common in spoken English, but I think, again, very neglected in the vast majority of course books, simply because their focus isn't on everyday spoken English. And hopefully one of the things that we've tried to do during our 2 weeks of the language development English Boost courses is focus on exactly this kind of thing.